Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to a very special edition on this 7th of October, our program called The Price of Freedom. As we know, we are all making dua for the liberation of our brothers and sisters in Gaza. There have been many NPOs that have assisted in the humanitarian aid, much needed humanitarian aid in Gaza. One such NPO is Islamic Relief, and I'm very privileged and honored to have in studio the CEO and country director of Islamic Relief South Africa, Brother Yusuf Mohamed. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Yusuf.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah, Brother Luqman, and to the viewers of Hilaal TV.
Jazakallah so much
for having us.
No, it's my absolute pleasure. Islamic Relief has been one of those organizations that's been on the ground even before the 7th of October as well. But it's hard to believe that it's actually years gone by, where the destruction, the devastation has continued. And when we see pictures coming from areas, certain parts, the north, the south of Gaza as well, it's hard to believe that there's still life after watching this devastation as well. And maybe with Islamic Relief being on the ground, I thought who better to invite into studio to give our viewers a better understanding of what is happening on the ground. Can you maybe give us a brief overview of the man-made crisis, let's face it, because that's what it is, and the destruction that your organization, Islamic Relief, has been responding to for the last year?
SubhanAllah, where does one start? As you said, 365 days of brutality, of massacre, of killing, of suffering and devastation, which I don't think we've witnessed, which the world in current times has never witnessed before. And the fact that it is happening in full view of the rest of the world makes it so much more painful and really unbelievable. We've witnessed over the last year how Israel has completely and continuously violated every international law that one could imagine, and human law or human rights law. They've bombed buildings, destroyed homes, medical facilities, along with that killed tens of thousands of people in full view of the rest of the world. And the world, to a large extent, by and large, apart from, and we are so proud of our South African government for having taken Israel to the International Court of Justice. The world has by and large remained silent, which we have to say by extension is that we are complicit in the massacres that are happening right before our eyes. And it's unbelievable that it's been allowed to continue for so long. And as we see now, it seems to be escalating into the other areas. In fact, we hope that it doesn't happen, but by all accounts, it seems that we could be in for a fully fledged war in the Middle East.
It does look like
and
it.
that would be devastating for the region.
Absolutely.
And for the world.
Absolutely. Obviously, since the 7th of October, the humanitarian aid need has tripled, trebled, quadrupled. Like you said, we've never seen something like this before in our lives, and inshallah we may never have to see something like this. But your organization, Islamic Relief, has heard the call, has assisted. Give our viewers a bit of an idea of the magnitude that was needed, and I'm sure it was just a drop in the ocean of what is still needed, but to a large extent Islamic Relief was there to assist where possible.
Yes. As you mentioned in your opening remarks, Islamic Relief has been in Palestine since 1997.
Alhamdulillah.
In Gaza at the moment, we are the largest international NGO that is working in Gaza at the moment, apart from the UN agencies. Alhamdulillah. We were in Gaza before the 2006 blockade of Gaza was imposed.
Right.
And our team has been working in Gaza since then, without stop. And we were there when this current escalation on the 7th of October last year, when it started. Nobody had any idea what the result would have been. But here we are, 365 days later, more than 42,000 people have been killed, 1/3 of which are children. There are over 90,000 confirmed. And these are the confirmed numbers, 90,000 people injured. And we know the situation in Gaza at the moment. Gaza was always in a crisis, even before this escalation. And what happened after the 7th of October has just increased the suffering of the people in Gaza. At the moment, hospitals are literally operating on the bare minimum. In most cases, they don't have sufficient equipment. People have to wait for days sometimes for the basic medication and the materials that they need to perform essential operations for that to be allowed across the border. So the situation in Gaza is unbelievable. And I mean, as has been, not by South Africans only, but internationally now, it's been called what it is. It's a genocide that we are witnessing before our eyes.
Correct.
So currently in Gaza, I mean, alhamdulillah, as you mentioned, Islamic Relief, our team was there. And just to also, give clarity on the matter, Islamic Relief, when we say we have a team in Gaza, our team in Gaza are Palestinians that live in Gaza. They live there with their families. Currently, our team in Gaza, many of them have been displaced as everybody else in Gaza has been displaced from area to area. There are areas in Gaza that are unreachable for us because we have to consider the safety of our staff. If our staff are not safe, they are unable to deliver aid. So, yes, there may be certain areas that we are not reaching, but at the moment, alhamdulillah, Islamic Relief is doing as best as we can, with the limited resources and basically also the restrictions on movement within Gaza.
Of course.
So when the escalation started, we had some items that were already in stock, because we have warehouses in Gaza. That our programs in Gaza are ongoing. Many of our programs in Gaza are on dealing with the issues that Palestinians face on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
And many of those projects had to be suspended so that our team could focus on the immediate need, which is emergency response. People need the very basics to survive because people's homes have been destroyed. Initially, we were doing distribution of food packs and food vouchers because the stores in Gaza still had some, they had some items available. We immediately, within the first 2 weeks, we distributed over 2.3 or close to 2.3 medical items that we had in stock. And at the moment, we are actually supporting a hospital that the capacity of the hospital should be 2,000 patients.
Right.
But it had, because of the need, they are currently dealing with about 10,000 patients in this medical facility, and Islamic Relief, alhamdulillah, is supporting this facility. We are currently also the largest partner for the World Food Program.
Okay.
By Allah's grace, again, because like I said, we've been working there for years. We have very close working relationships with the other international NGOs as well as with the local organizations. So we run 24 kitchens in Gaza. Primarily in the south and the middle part of Gaza. We had one kitchen in the north, which is, again, depending on accessibility, it doesn't function all the time. At one stage, Brother Luqman, we were distributing 400,000 ready-to-eat meals per day.
Wow,
400,000. And the reason for this is because people don't have the means to provide food for themselves.
Absolutely.
They don't have the means to cook the food. So food, food items as such where people need to cook their food is of not really much value because they don't have the means to prepare the food. So alhamdulillah, we prepare for the World Food Program alone about 200 to 250,000 meals, and the balance of the food we prepare. Apart from that, we are providing water to around about 80,000 people. As water becomes available, we've got access to the people that have been displaced that are in many of the camps now, living in tented camps, and many of them are living actually in informal areas, basically seeking refuge by whatever means they are able to. We have access when we do get water. There are some water supplies in Gaza. Some of the Gaza, alhamdulillah, very innovative. Even though some of these water facilities were destroyed, they somehow got them running again. And when we are able to access the water, we provide water to people. The ready-to-eat meals at the moment is priority, but we also do other items such as blankets, and clothing when we are able to receive it across the border. As you know, aid entering into Gaza is already prior to this escalation, there was insufficient aid entering Gaza. At the moment, the situation is much more dire. And not only us, according to many, even Human Rights Watch, they have said that Israel is using food as a weapon. Israel is using food as a weapon of war, right? So, and at the moment, about 1 million people in Gaza do not have, we know that everybody is in need of food, but almost 1 million people, which is about half of the population, are literally almost at the stage of starvation.
Of course. Jazakallah so much for sharing that hair-raising stats, statistics, figures with us that nobody wants to hear, but that's the reality. And I think our idea behind this program is to let our viewers know exactly what is happening on the ground, especially with organizations like yourself that assist. We're going to take a very short break. When we come back, we're going to chat a bit more to the CEO of Islamic Relief South Africa, Brother Yusuf Mohamed, around their humanitarian aid that is continually supplied and arranged in Gaza. Do stay tuned. We'll be back after the break. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to a very special edition on Hilaal TV, where we are speaking about the last year of devastation in the Gaza region, and an NPO that's always ready to assist in any humanitarian crisis is Islamic Relief. And I've got CEO of Islamic Relief in South Africa, Brother Yusuf Mohamed, chatting to us and giving us an idea of the type of assistance that was provided and needed in Gaza. Brother Yusuf, Jazakallah so much for coming into studio. You know, I can't help but have a lump in my throat when we speak about you know, what is needed, what is provided, and what has happened, especially and escalated over the last year as well. But you know, we do know that as much as humanitarian aid has been provided, there's been a number of blocks that Israel has put into play as well, with regards to the correct medical supplies, food, water that needed to have gone to much needed communities. We've also seen aid vehicles, you know, and humanitarian workers being targeted over the past year. We've seen journalists that have been killed. We've seen key political figures that have been murdered as well. But how has Islamic Relief been managing to get much needed food, water, supplies into Gaza?
Jazakallah khair, Brother Luqman. I mean, it's such an important question because people always want to know, is aid getting into Gaza? If it is, how is it getting aid or how is aid getting into Gaza? To clarify the matter, Israel controls all the borders that surround Gaza. Before the 7th of October 2023, it was estimated that Gaza needed over 1,000 trucks of aid per day.
Sure.
Right? That was then.
Prior
to the 7th of October 2023.
Sure.
You can imagine what the current need is. And yet, the amount of trucks that are allowed into Gaza on a daily basis, or not, and that's when it is allowed, is maybe between 50 to 150, sometimes more than that. On average, 50 to 100 trucks per day, right?
Sure.
So the amount of aid reaching into Gaza is hopelessly insufficient for the need. Alhamdulillah, Islamic Relief, as I mentioned earlier, we've got long-standing relationships with the major NGOs, the major international institutions, such as the UN agencies, as well as the local partners. And also, because we've been there for so long, we've got long-established relationships with even the businesses inside Gaza. Part of our myth, or how we operate, whichever country, not only in Gaza, humanitarian work can serve more than just the interest of those who are in desperate need, like as we see now in Gaza. But humanitarian work can also help develop the economy of the country that you are working in. So wherever possible, we work with local suppliers. And that has been our approach all throughout the years, that the businesses in Gaza, we let them bring the goods into Gaza, and then we purchase the items that are available there. So that way it serves a dual purpose.
Brilliant.
And so wherever possible, there are still businesses that manage somehow, you know, they have their means to bring items into Gaza. We still support them where we can. And because of our relationship with the World Food Program, as I mentioned, we are the largest partner for the World Food Program for hot meal distributions at the moment. We do about 200,000 meals for the World Food Program alone. And because of this, we use or leverage this partnership to bring aid into Gaza and then do our distributions as well. The situation at the moment, like even if we talk about a number of 200, or even at times we were doing 400,000 meals a day about a month or so ago. It's a lot, but if you consider the need, there are still so many hundreds of thousands of people who are still in need, but we are unable to reach them, either because there's insufficient supply or because the areas that are in are so isolated and it's too dangerous for us to access.
Right.
So these are the challenges. We're doing the best that we can. As you mentioned in, again, just your opening remark to this question, that Islamic Relief, we are always willing to help. I think that Islamic Relief has a very has a slightly different view of the matter, in the sense that one of our values is amana, right? That we don't see this as a job or as a favor that we are doing or something that it is our responsibility. It is an amana that is on our shoulders to deliver the aid to the people who are in need. And I think it's a very different paradigm when you look at it from this perspective. And I often think to myself, Alhamdulillah, Islamic Relief, we have offices in 46 countries around the world. We in South Africa, we implement local programs as well as support the work that our teams are doing in Gaza. Like at the moment in Gaza, we're reflecting or speaking about Gaza. The team on the ground, wallahi, they are the real heroes. They could have, and I'm sure we'd have no qualms if they asked us to leave. But our teams in Gaza with their families, as I said, many of them, one of our colleagues, we communicate with them on a maybe 2-week cycle. We reach out to them. We have what we call our family council, and we connect with them to let them know also that, we are supporting as best we can, and to make them feel just how much we appreciate what they are doing. They could have left if they wanted to. Of course, definitely. But well, they are there with the people through the misery that we see unfolding. We see social media, we hear about it on the news, and our team are going through those same difficulty basis. But wallahi, they are because they tell us, in fact, our country director, he says, Brother Yusuf, this is our amana. If we die here, this is what Allah has decreed for us, but we are not going anywhere. We are staying here because we have a responsibility to reach the people who are in need.
That's amazing. It's, we all could take a page out of someone's book like that, and a lesson to be learned as well. One of the most hard things to see over the news on a regular basis is, that have killed, children that have been orphaned, children that are in camps, that have literally children that are looking after children because they've got no parents now as well. What has been some of the work that Islamic Relief has done in order to ensure that some relief, some aid is given to these children?
SubhanAllah, look, they are always within every situation, even at the moment where everybody in Gaza is in need. You have within that like special groups of the most vulnerable. And the children, as we know, the poor innocent children, they are of the most vulnerable. And that's one area also, because we've been working in Gaza for so many years, we know how to respond in a situation like this, even though the magnitude was beyond anything we've witnessed in the past. Up until this point, since the 7th, alhamdulillah, our team, together with other local partners, have delivered social support to over 90,000 children. Right? 90,000 children who have received psychosocial support, various activities that, they know how these specialists that deal with these types of cases, provide. But, I just want to share one story. And this is, we spoke about our teams. One story which really touched me, right? There's a doctor who works in one of the hospitals, and he told us, he recounted the story, and I'll share it with the viewers because it's such a beautiful story and something for us to reflect on. Of course. This doctor, he said there was someone who was in the surgical ward. He himself is a pediatric surgeon, but in Gaza you have to help wherever there's a need. For sure. He was a pediatric surgeon, and in this ward he said there was one of the patients. This patient's name was Mahmoud Fouda. And please don't forget this name, Mahmoud Fouda. And this patient, he had so much admiration for him because he was one of those that he was in a building that was targeted by an Israeli missile strike. He lost his right arm was blown off between the shoulder and the elbow. His right leg between the knee and the hip. His left leg between the knee and the hip. So he literally only had his left arm. He was in the surgical ward for 3 days up until that point because they were waiting actually on anesthetic. They weren't going to operate on him until they had anesthetic, and the anesthetic hadn't arrived into Gaza yet. It also gives you an idea of how the people have to suffer even after they're suffering, and how the suffering is prolonged. So he said he was in this, and he was looking at this man with such admiration because this man had so much sabr. He looked at him, and this man's face was just a face of contentment, even in his condition. And he never heard him utter a word of complaint. He never even heard him say anything. And he said he was looking at him. He used to look at him at times, and when the man would sometimes turn his face, then he would look away because he didn't want the man to feel that he was looking at him out of pity.
Gotcha.
So he said one day somebody came into the hospital, and this man went to ward to ward. If he went to the first ward, he asked the doctor, is there a doctor here by the name of Mahmoud Fuda? And the doctor said no. He said, is there a nurse here by the name of Mahmoud Fuda? I said no. Is there a patient here by the name of Mahmoud Fuda? They said no, there's no patient. He said, is there maybe a visitor here by the name of Mahmoud Fuda? And they said no, there's no visitor here. He went from ward to ward asking the same question. He even went, this doctor said, this who told us the story, he even went to the gynecological ward to ask if there was maybe a visitor there by the name of Mahmoud Fuda. Nobody, until he came to the surgical ward. And then he asked one of the nurses, is there a doctor here by the name of Mahmoud Fuda? So the nurse said, no, there's no doctor here, but there's a patient here by that name. He said, is there a patient here? He said, she said, yes. She said, where is he? Show me where he is. So she pointed in the direction of the patient. He went to stand by his bedside, and he looked at him and he asked him, are you Mahmoud Fuda? And the man looks at him like a bit puzzled, and he says, yes, I am. He says, do you know? And the man says, no, I don't know you. So he says, I don't know you either. He says, I don't know you either. He says, but wallahi, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam sent me to come and tell you that Allah and His Rasul are pleased with you.
MashaAllah. Oh man, what a beautiful story.
He said, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam came to me in a dream, and he told me, you go look in this hospital for Mahmoud Fuda, and you tell him that Allah and His Rasul are pleased with him.
Sure.
Oh. He said, the doctor that told us the story, this is the first time he heard Mahmoud cry. He said, Rasulullah said this about me. So the doctor said, he said, this kind of honor, right, doesn't come from you sitting in your home.
Okay.
Doesn't come from you being in comfort. When you prove to Allah your iman through your action, this is when you get the honor and this kind of glad tidings. So he said, our team, whatever it is, we will go through difficulty. We will, because this is what Allah has decreed for us. But we are not leaving Gaza. We are staying.
Beautiful.
SubhanAllah.
Brother Yusuf, Jazakallah so much for all your efforts, your team, family that sacrifice to ensure that we provide some humanitarian aid. And as brothers and sisters in Gaza, keep doing what you're doing. Inshallah. And it's always a pleasure having you in studio. We wish you a great evening.
Jazakumullah khair. Shukran wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
And there we go, the CEO and Country Director of Islamic Relief South Africa, Brother Yusuf Mohamed, in studio, sharing firsthand the experience of his team on the ground in Gaza. From all of us at Hilaal TV, we wish you a great afternoon. Assalamu alaikum.